All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dojo 21 Questions. I'm Tish Hicks, the Master Sensei of the VO Dojo here in Burbank, California, and we are super excited to have Brent Mukai here for our 21 questions and later Ask the Sensei. So, Brent, you are a dojo member, Fight Club champion, well, Fight Club chosen one, as we say. Um, yeah, so thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. You ready to roll with the 21 questions?
I am ready to roll with the 21 questions.
All right. So, what's your one-word check-in for today? If you had to distill how you are right now today into one word.
Open.
Excellent. Where are you from?
I am from Pearl City, Hawaii.
Ooh, where do you live now?
I live in North Hollywood / Burbank, California.
Yay, just recently. That's fantastic. And what will we know your voice from?
You'd know my voice from Ratchet and Clank as Gary. You would know my voice from Pokemon as Nito. You would know my voice from Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens as President Goha. And One Piece as Scratch Manapu.
Nice. My son will be very excited. My 15-year will be very excited. And we just got to meet Keith Asak on Fight Club the other night from Ratchet
Oh,
and Clank. He's awesome.
super nice
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, yeah. How long have you been doing voiceover?
Since 2000, and do you mean in terms of how long have I been working in it, or how long have I been working at it?
Well, let's interesting distinction. What would your answer be for both?
Training started in early 2016, and then I was able to go full time at it by the end of 2017.
Nice. So that was swift. Swift, yes. Um, who is your current team? Who helps you do what all you do?
Who helps me do all of that I do? Well, in between the Pearl City, Hawaii, and here in Burbank, I was in Las Vegas. My tribe, my crew that I absolutely love, is known as the Voice Actors Studio. I love them very much. Melissa
Mhm.
Moats was my mentor. She was absolutely fantastic, um, and just a phenomenal group of just coaches and who I now consider friends that
Mhm.
uh, really had a rising tide lifts all boats type of attitude, and
Cool, cool, cool.
really helped me achieve where I am right now. So yeah,
Excellent. And how about your representation team?
my representation team is Dean Panero Talent.
Awesome. Dean's
Yeah,
the best. Yeah. Cool, 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 cool. What's your setup there?
my setup is I just very recently got a Scott's booth. So
Nice.
fun, super great. I have a TLM 103. I also have an Apollo Twin Mark II. I'm running it off of a Mac Mini 2020
Mhm.
M1 chip, Mac Mini. And yeah, I mean, all the rest of the stuff's like, who cares about a monitor, right? In voiceover.
Right, right. And I look at something. Good, good, good. Well, what is your VO origin story? How did you get started?
Okay, so
Mhm.
I I exhaled and sighed, not because I was like, okay, where do I start? Not like it was a dark Batman story. I'm always like, where do I start in the story? So for a long time I was doing a lot of entertainment stuff in Las Vegas. I was doing improv on and off the strip. I was teaching improv on and off the strip. I was doing random comedy shows, random corporate events, things like that. I was never full time at it. Eventually I found my way into stand-up comedy, and while I was on the road doing like a show in California, me and a buddy were driving out to Ventura for a comedy club they have out there. Shout out Dan White. And he we were chilling, just he was driving, and I was asking him how things are going, and he had brought up that he was just in a voiceover session. And to me, I had always thought that you had to be famous first. Um,
Mm.
so I didn't even think about it, but I'd always wanted to pursue voice acting, and asked him a whole ton of questions. He introduced me to his friend Dave. His friend Dave had just worked with people in Vegas because I was still living over there at that time, and that was it. I showed up at the studio where in Vegas. I met up with a couple people beforehand, voice actors beforehand, like Dustin Ebaugh, and
Oh yeah, Dustin's awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, great. Great, great, great. Yeah, love him. Um, and went through the training. I went through the training, heard the first thing about like, okay, here's what the expectations are. Here's what really, really, seriously how this thing works. It's not just about using your voice, it's about marketing and all this other stuff. And everything that I heard, I was like, yeah, I want to do that. That's
Hmm.
exactly the lifestyle I would like, and I would like something that has regular hours, and I don't have to be out with stand-up promoters till, 1 or 2 a.m. just
Right.
chilling, or showing up to shows just to show up and hang out. And I realized I didn't want to be on the road 40 weeks
Hmm.
out of the year was the big one.
A little bit more in control of your own destiny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I was more in control of a destiny that let me stay home. That was more so the important thing, was like,
Right,
let
right,
me just stay home.
right.
I'm more of a homebody, I think, anyway. But yeah, that was sort of the origin story.
Excellent. So I have a similar, like, have a first session and going, that is what I'm going to do.
Yes.
So, and then what I also heard, and then you did the work,
Mhm.
and then you did what needed to do, and there you go. That yeah. What would you say the top three ingredients in your success would be or have been?
Self-awareness. Self-awareness, number
Self-awareness?
one. I think that without it, um, it's tough for anybody, because there's so many things required of you, and so many things that you need to sort of fundamentally understand about yourself before you can
Mm.
jump into anything entrepreneurial, because I think of this as an entrepreneurial endeavor first, right? So there's that. Number two, curiosity. I think
Mhm.
I'm extremely curious about everything, and like, to this day, I spend time and will fall down rabbit holes of, just looking at something and then being like, oh, I wonder what that's like. Whether it's a character, or whether it's a new piece of technology or equipment for a commercial, or anything in between there, right? So I'll research, and I'm genuinely curious about it, and I want to know, and I want to see
Yeah.
what this thing is, and understand a little bit about how it works. Not all the time. Sometimes I'm just like, all right, it's some kind of Wi-Fi router. Let's just get but I'm genuinely pretty curious about stuff. And then number three, I would say it's my strategy.
Mm.
I have a love of strategy games. I don't want to say addicted, but I really love the game poker. And
Uh-huh.
I think that anybody who is interested in doing this type of work should at least play a little bit of poker, because it is all of the things that are taught and repeated and said throughout all of voice acting, and like telling people, like, be patient. It is a game of skill. However, there is a lot of luck involved in terms of, this individual thing. um, Poker taught me to have a lot of patience and understanding, and to always ask myself, even if it seemed like things are out of my control because of the luck factor, well, what could I have done differently on that last hand? What could I have done
Ooh.
differently on that last audition? What could I have done differently on certain things? Um, that without the sort of air of, I did something wrong. Oh my God, I'm such a fool. No, 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 no. It's every single hand. We're all human beings. We're going to be imperfect. Everybody else is also going to be imperfect. So it's like, how do you maximize the value of every single situation that you're given? And I think of that, instead of hands now in poker, I think of that as auditions and sessions in the music
Whoa.
world.
That is fantastic. And I guess the benefit of coming up in voiceover in Las Vegas too, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I love that. I love that playing, like recognizing that it's a game and you build your skills at the game and you play the game. That it's not personal.
And it's
Yeah.
never a question of, am I good at the game or am I good enough at the game? Anybody can sit at the table, but it's the people who are going to examine themselves with that self-awareness that end up growing into a person that really is great at the game. So
Whoo,
I
that
think
just is
it's
like whoosh, everything comes together in that. Yeah, that self-awareness is that's so much what the heart of the dojo training is first internal training
Mhm.
and then everything else. And curiosity is part of our rules of the dojo. Cultivate beginner's mind, curiosity, determination, humility. All of that's rolled up in everything you're saying.
I absolutely love it. And that's why I love the dojo so much, is because I mean, for those who have not taken or audited the professional classes with casting directors who come
Yeah,
in,
the
and
Via Dojo Pro Fight Club.
yes, the
Yeah.
fight clubs are my absolute favorite class of all time, because very rarely are casting directors put in a position where they have to actually say, well, this is who I believe would have, booked the role on this one.
Right.
Here are the reasons why and why not. And all of that is extremely valuable to my own self-awareness of, even if I don't book it, it's equally as valuable, if not more valuable, because now I've learned what I can do in the future, that if I run
Mhm.
across them again, I can book it. So
Yeah.
so many
Yeah.
so many great philosophies, I think, collide
Right,
with.
you get to see the whole process and then bring yourself to that particular decision maker's process, and you've just been you it's always fantastic when you're in the house because it's like, "Ooh,
Ah,
take it up a notch." It's
thanks.
great. Yeah. What would you say your big break was, if you had one, is if there is such a thing? What would you say your big break was?
I think if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said Ratchet and Clank was like the
Mhm.
big break. But what I'm understanding, and I hope this doesn't come off as jaded, but it's that the world moves so fast now. I don't think there is such a thing as a big break anymore.
Mm.
I think that there are, like, and there are gonna be those roles that are like, okay, you can show up to conventions and sign
Mhm.
autographs for $20 a pop with this big, huge role. But I think that, like, the speed at which media is coming out now, it's not like before, when there were a few big shows, a few big games. Now there's so much coming out from every direction, which
Mhm.
means you have so much more opportunity, but the sacrifice along with that, right? The balance that comes along with that is the realization that, what is a big break? What does that even, how is that even quantified, right? How is that even
Mhm.
qualified? And as that was the biggest role that, and probably still is the biggest role that I've booked. However, I just think that I process better when I just keep going, okay, cool. That was like a job.
Mhm.
Let's keep working and get the next job, and I think it's unfair to what comes to the future if I am consistently thinking about the thing from the past being the biggest thing. So yeah.
That's beautiful. That's fantastic and really is, how do you recognize that you're building a sustained successful career and that there's things that will open up new opportunities or allow yourself to have a new awareness of yourself like, "Oh, wow, I'm on a AAA game. Cool." Um, but not like, "I'm on a AAA game," right? It's just like, "Oh, okay. So this is the where I get to play." Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd also say that I don't think that I or anybody as the artist gets to decide what their big break was. I think that the people decide, the
Oh, that's
enjoyers
interesting.
of the media decide, and they say, well, oh man, somebody might say, oh, I remember hearing you on this anime as like a really small character role, and I remember thinking you did so well.
Mm.
To me, to that person, that was my big break. So I also think it's like,
Oh, that's so fascinating.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
a perspective thing.
We always talk at the dojo that there is no they, there's only we. And oftentimes that's in the context of like decision makers and agents and things, and not going like, oh, they, what do they want? But you just included who is receiving, who is receiving this beautiful work and play that we do. That's also the we, right? Our
Mhm.
audience, our listeners. That's super cool. Yeah. I think you mentioned the answer to this, but how long was it starting your VO journey to making your full living? I think you said it earlier.
So I sort of have a caveat to this. There's an asterisk that goes here because, well, okay, so I started in 2016, and then by the end of 2017, that was when I was able to pull the Lyft and Uber stickers off my car in November of 2017, right? But that wasn't fully just voice acting. Like the real like that's a great story to be like, oh yeah, it was just a a year and 10 months before I was able to, no, but it wasn't quite that, I guess. To expound on it, I was doing a bunch of other gigs at the time, so I was like, I knew that I
Mhm.
had a caroling gig at Lowry's where I would
Mhm.
make some decent money. I knew I had a few clients that would call me up for improv corporate trainings. I knew that I was teaching at the studio doing improv classes for the students there. I knew so many, like and I was still doing stand up at the time. I hadn't quite
Mhm.
given that up yet. I was still doing random comedy gigs. So it was voice acting plus all of this other stuff that allowed me to kind of keep afloat. Um so i- i- yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and
It's
that
hard to
that
say when was I just doing voice acting. That was
right,
probably a
right,
few.
right. But yeah, but which actually answers the next question. What else did you do while you were getting there? And I love to ask this question because I think when people are on their journey, it seems like, oh, it's like, no, 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 you're doing it. You're doing it. We always talk about it at the dojo, like you're weaving this into your life. And each time, each thread, each thing that you do, each new person you meet, each new class you take, each new job you get, then becomes the VO wave is going on, and then you left off those driving people threads, right? That was not
Right.
part of your weaving anymore. And then all these other things. And then you were able to make choices like, and now stand up is infused in your work, but you don't live that stand up life. So that's really cool.
The better
And
way I'd like to frame it, I guess, for
mhm,
people, because I think this is a much more helpful realization for people, is that I came up to Las Vegas in 2007, basically a week before I turned 18, and
how?
then it took me until 2017, until November of 2017. So roughly about 10 years of pursuing and working towards my goals and ambitions of being a working artist in some capacity. It took me
Mm.
10 years
So
to.
there's the iceberg
Right.
that's under that. Like, yeah, just 10 easy months, right?
Which is why I say that, because I think that so many students will hear a year and 10 months and then think that that's
Mhm.
exactly what it was. It wasn't 10 whole years that I was pursuing voice acting. No way. I only started in 2016, right? But like, it was 10 years of work that led up to me being able to be
Go
full-time
like,
artist.
boom.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that helps people with their patience as well when they start to realize, oh, that's interesting. Well, then I don't have to feel so bad that it's taking a little longer for me on my journey, because maybe I started voice acting a while ago, but like So
Yeah.
everybody's a little different. So I like
And
to.
I also hear you speak of really pursuits and art forms within that. If I hear you are an improviser, you were part of the world of stand-up on a professional level. If you're caroling at Lowry's, that means that you're a good singer, right?
I was an
Um,
okay singer.
an okay singer, a paid singer. How about that? You're a
Sure.
paid singer. Um, you also, I mean, that also is you also talked about being parts of events and knowing how people work, and so there's lots of things that are things that you're doing that came together when you are like, hey, what is this voiceover? Yeah,
100%.
yeah. What are you proudest of in your voiceover career?
What am I proudest of in my voiceover career? That's a phenomenal question. Well, if I'll speak from the heart. I'll say the first thing that comes to mind is I don't think I'm more proud of anything other than the fact that I am able to coach and teach and help people get to their dreams. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that is the greatest feeling in the entire world to me. I often say it's pretty equal and even to like me booking a role and then seeing
Mm-hmm.
somebody else book a role. But if I'm being honest, I think that there's some part of me that is even happier when I
Mm.
watch a student who I've seen work hard, who I've, had the pleasure of being a part of their journey, book a role because it's like, well, cool. I'm not only doing this as, for me, I'm doing this for a bigger scale and there's a larger purpose to it. So to me,
Yeah.
I think watching somebody announce something or, privately text me and say, "Hey, I can't talk about, the specifics, but I just had my first like LA game booking," like things like that always bring a smile to my face. I had a student just a few weeks ago be like, "I just booked my first job ever." And I remember where she started and I remember like and I now I see the growth and there's just something amazing to that. So I think that's what I'm most proud of is my ability to pass it on.
Wow. Yeah, I totally understand that. The same thing that happened after my first session was, and then I remember that crossing that threshold into teaching and sharing, like you're just talking about, and feeling like that second calling of like, oh, there it is. How do you work with people? Like, how do you do private coaching? Do
I
you?
do private coaching. I also do classes. I think that the way that I work with people that is very unique is that I come at it from an improv teaching perspective because I
Mhm.
taught improv for about 10 years before I started teaching voice acting. So then when I started teaching voice acting and I was full time at it, I sort of started compiling an idealism of how to teach voice acting, sort of based on how I taught improv, which was
Mhm.
that everybody's different and each unique hurdle and each unique strength are equally important to show a person and put in front of them for their own self-awareness. And I like to do a lot of I like to do a lot of asking questions to people and figuring out what their strategy is while they're working so that we can develop a strategy that perhaps works for them, whether that is in business and life or whether that strategy is coming up with a sort of grounding base of how to approach a specific kind of script, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how I tend to work with people. I like to do a lot more listening, um, not more listening than coaching. Obviously, I'm not just gonna be
Mhm.
like, "Well, how are you feeling today?" No, it's not like
Yeah.
that. But like, I try to incorporate a large amount of listening so that I can
Mhm.
understand truly where somebody's coming from, and not only comment on what they're doing, but to figure out why they're doing what they're doing so that we can
Mhm.
sort of attack it in a more specific way.
Yeah, yeah. Listen carefully. Listening carefully is one of the other rules of voiceover here at the dojo. And then you're talking about connection. Yeah. Super cool. Um, what's your biggest fear or challenge in your voiceover career?
My biggest fear or challenge? I don't know that I have any fears. I
Did you
mean,
used to?
there's always the fear of like, oh God, my career, you have a slow week and like it's all over. They figured it out. You know, when I first started, of course, the first like slow week or like slow month where it's like last month I was like booking like weekly. It was crazy. Things
Mhm.
were going good. And then like a month where it's like, oh my God, it's been 2 weeks. I'm done. It's over. Like when you're first starting out, those are always the fears. But very luckily, I had diverse forms of gigs, so
Mhm.
so that always kept me afloat and kept me somewhat sane, which was nice. But yeah, beyond the lizard monkey brain like unfounded fears of like it's gonna be over tomorrow. You wake up in a cold sweat sometimes and you're like, oh, I had this dream that I was done. Um, Other than that, I don't really feel a lot of fear. I'm pretty. I'd like to think that I'm pretty centered and pretty balanced in
Mhm.
my life and feeling pretty good. I would say if there was anything close to a fear, it would be that moving out here will be justified by what by the margins of what I get out of moving out here, because it's a sizable jump in the cost of living. I don't know if anyone's lived in
Oh, I
Vegas.
see.
Ooh, it's a very sizable difference. So it's like, okay, am I getting my ROI? Am I getting my return on investment here
Mhm.
for being
Mhm.
here? And then the second I start having that thought, I say, shut up. Just shut up, you idiot. You're not going to get all the one-to-one value. Sometimes just being here,
Right.
hanging out. I was hanging out with a voice actor yesterday, and we just went to an arcade, and like that alone is like
Mhm.
so valuable in ways that I don't even understand yet. So I'm going with the flow, and
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
moving to LA is like moving to another planet, even though it seems sort of normal, but yeah,
yeah.
it's just a transition. It's not like it's Mars or Martians or anything. It's just different, and then you adjust and find yourself in this place, in this market, in this environment, in this uh opportunity. And I think it's even more in LA, you have to really activate your entrepreneurial instincts because
Yes, and what I'm
yeah.
realizing, and I'm so sorry to cut you off.
No, 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 it's good. It's
Why?
yeah.
Why? I'd love you to finish your thought.
No, that was the
Activate
like
entrepreneurial.
it just requires more, and you have to go. Like LA is just LA, and until you know what's going on and where it's going on, it's not like, oh, this is where this happens. You have to go, oh, now I know where that studio is and who that team is because I've been to Lyme, or I've been to like whichever studio, then you know, oh, that's where that agency is. Oh, that's where that is, right? Yeah.
100%. What I was gonna say is it's like it is, the culture is different no matter where you go. If I moved
Mhm.
to anywhere other than Vegas, the culture is gonna be different. So it's like
Mhm.
a whole new culture thing, and it's like, okay, interesting, interesting. But I've absolutely been having a blast out here. So I can't even call that a fear. I would say the biggest challenge though
Mhm.
is figuring out the next step and then implementing what I
Mhm.
believe to be the next step for my career.
Right. And that's just true of everyone. However long you've been doing. If you've been doing it 10 months or 27 years or 10 years or whatever, there's always that like, and then you don't know, you get the spark, you don't know what you're doing, you find out what you're doing, you kind of get better at what you're doing. You're like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And then there's that moment of expansion, like, oh, now you're in the LA market. Okay, you know what you're doing about all this, and then there's this new thing that you're learning. So all part of the process never stops. Yay!
Mhm.
um, would you say you are an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert.
Extrovert, yeah.
But I think
So,
everybody's somewhere on the spectrum. I'm still like, if I go to a place where there's like 30 people I don't know, I'm gonna be a little more introverted because it's like, you know, I'm reading the room. It's like, everybody else knows each other. And I'm experiencing that now because it's like I'm going to improv things and it's like, oh, I don't know anybody or I'll know
yeah,
one person. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of yeah. I play my part. And I think that the, I think introvert, extrovert always sort of falls on like where you are, what the circumstances are as well. But
Mhm.
typically extrovert.
Yeah. Although you did say earlier on that you're an extrovert who wanted to stay at home more, right? So
Yeah.
that's interesting. And I think I love that question because I think this work, this profession, this endeavor of voiceover really requires that we find that blend of how are we okay sitting in our little boxes all by ourselves, and how are we going out and meeting people and developing relationships with clients and teams and stuff like that. It really requires that wherever you are, you kind of find the place where you get that blend. So, yeah. Um, well, I guess since you just moved, we might know the answer to this, but if you could do a voiceover from anywhere, where would it be?
Here. It's
Here.
amazing. I love just going into the studios. I mean, I have a nice space. I have all the equipment handled and down, but like, oh boy, is it nice to just not have to catch a flight to come here.
Oh, wow, you've been going back and forth. Wow.
I was, yeah, that was
Yeah.
sort of the reason why I moved here. Well, it was always a part of the strategy, right? That was always
Mhm.
the long-term
Mhm.
goal was to move here, but like this past year I just hit a wall and I was like, man, I am tired because I'm traveling a bunch.
Yeah.
And yeah, so now that I'm
That's
here, it's really nice.
That's awesome. I always say that the work that we do in our booths every day is like we take a shower, we brush our teeth, and then when you go to the studio, it's like having a spa day. Like, oh, spa day. I think I'll have a cup of tea and a bagel. Yes. M&Ms? Yes, thank you. Omelette? Sure. Um, let's see. What would you say your VO motto is?
Am I allowed to swear?
Sure.
I tell people, fuck it. Just fuck it. Who cares? Like when so many people that I coach and so many people that get into voice acting, I think there's a ton of people who overthink things a whole bunch. And my motto is just like, why? Fuck it. Just read for me in the way that you thought. And then if not, then we can keep on exploring.
Exactly.
Why why is it so precious?
Take take base medium. If we don't like that one, we'll not use it. That's fine. Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. What's your daily VO practice, or what's a typical VO day for you? I know you work in a lot of different genres and a lot of different things, but what does a day look like for you?
Um,
Or how do you approach your work?
a day looks like I'm just flying by the seat of my pants a lot of times.
Mhm.
It was a lot easier to sort of get a handle on everything when everything was happening in my booth. So like,
Mm.
I have 20 minutes in between this last session and this next session. If I'm in my booth the whole time, I got time to knock out a few auditions here and there, do this and
Mhm.
that. Now that I'm driving to the studios, it's like, okay, well, that 20 minutes is a drive to the next place. And like, this is, so I have to schedule a lot more carefully now
Mhm.
around to allow myself driving time and all of that. And then, even if I get to the next place early, it's not like I have my whole setup in my car
Right.
being good, but I'm not willing to do that before it be like, okay, let me knock out on my phone
Yeah.
so um yeah, so that's like I'd say like that's the one sort of caveat now. So that's my day looks a lot different than it did even 3 4 months ago.
Mhm.
um
Mhm.
so I get home from my session or sessions whenever that is, get to work on my auditions, and the past 2 months has been a lot of, because of that drive time, because of all of that, has been a lot of me catching up on like, okay, this is what's due when, what do I have to
Mhm.
do now, prioritizing my time so that I can get everything out there.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And then
that's
previously, when you were working from Las Vegas, then you'd have to take in travel time of getting to the airport, getting
oh man.
here.
Yeah,
Right. So
those
then
days
you'd
were
have,
crazy for me.
yeah.
I was like, oh, and then I'd get home at like 9 sometimes, and then just like, "Okay, well, this is due at 6 a.m. tomorrow because I have my East Coast clients, so let me knock it out of the
Hmm.
park now because I don't wanna get up at 5 a.m. to do this."
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
it's just
Yeah.
a constant, it's a constant churning everything out for the future while doing everything that I need to do in the present, and, yeah.
And that's also sounds like where improv and entrepreneurialism blend, right?
Mhm.
What do we need to do? Where we go? Yeah.
Working
Good.
now.
Yeah. Knowing what you know now, what would you say to yourself at the beginning of your career? At whichever point, and whichever point you define as the beginning of your career.
Invest in Bitcoin. No. Um,
Plastics.
yeah. What would I say to myself? I guess I would say be patient. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that I would like to say, like go do voice acting because you
What are
you
you
actually
doing, boy?
wanted to go move to LA and just go pursue voice acting. Go take all of those student loans and just take a bunch of voice acting classes. That's what I would tell myself.
Mm,
But would that have been practical to myself? I don't think so.
right.
I don't I consistently think like what would I do different if I went back in time, and I just think everything happened the way that I needed it to happen.
Mhm.
I don't think that I would have made it or survived out here at the fresh age of, 18,
Oh, yeah.
like just trying to pursue some. I think I would have been too impatient. I think I would have been
Mhm.
so many different things. Like I think I needed to be able to survive and live in a place that was
Yeah.
like Vegas where the cost of living was very low, that I didn't have to like go back home, right?
Right?
It was
Yeah.
the more that I think about like, oh, if I'd gotten into this earlier, certain things could have happened and changed that would have been awesome. But at the same time, I don't think that it would have worked out exactly the way it's worked out, and this is the
Yeah.
best timeline for me, I think. I think
Yeah.
I'm very lucky and fortunate to be where I am. So I don't know that I would sell myself anything.
Yeah. That's a really great discussion. So trust your own gestation period,
Yeah.
right? Trust that, like, well, who would know, right? Yeah. That's beautiful. And the last of the 21 questions. What is your next goal, desire, voiceover or otherwise?
How I promise that when I sigh, it's not anything other than there's a lot that I wanna say, but I don't know how much to say.
Mm.
I guess in a short form answer, my next goal is to put myself into a position where I am able to have bigger shots and work on social media in such a way that it will be impossible for people to deny me access to opportunity on a
Mm.
larger scale. I think that I'm happy where I'm at. I think that I'm always grateful for what I have, but I'm always, just because I've eaten my fill, it doesn't mean that I can't be a little hungry for ice cream.
Yeah, no, that's the other part of it. It's always like what's next, what's
Yeah.
new,
I'm
what
always looking
yeah.
for my ice cream. That's
I love it. Love the metaphor. Yay. Well, Brent, so happy to have you share these amazing insights. And we'll be looking forward to having you ask the sensei, where we can ask you questions even more. And so love having you part of the dojo, and look forward to all the goodness ahead, and further collaborations. My brain's going like, ooh, let's play. Ooh, I wanna, I wanna ask him about that. I wanna work with him at that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I am
So,
extremely, extremely open to all of it. To circle back, right? To circle back. I'm open to
yeah,
all of
well
it. I'm up
done.
for it all. I'm in a new city. I moved here for fun opportunities and fun, ideas of collaboration and
Yeah,
whatever and whatnot. So, it's a great honor to be here. I'm
yay,
super happy we did
excellent.
this, and I'm
And
looking forward to the Q&A and all of that.
yeah, you just closed the Herald, didn't you? Boop,
I
brought
guess
it
I
back to
did.
the first word. Awesome. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much. We will see you soon. Let me stop the